I'm actually trying to remember the question. I don't know. It must not have been that important.
Let's go. You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey folks, welcome to Making Data Simple. Glad you're here. I have to tell you, I am now a COVID statistic. As I am talking, I do have COVID. So we've been talking about COVID over the last couple of years on this podcast. I thought somehow I was going to be the lucky one that didn't get COVID. That's not true. I now have COVID. So, I may break into a cough. The good news is we got a mute button. I did have a pretty big fever, but that's gone. So I think I'm coming out of it. Nothing to be messed with. So I'll do my best today. Today, the guest I have is David Collins. The topic that we're going to talk about is data and startup leadership. If there's an episode title, I don't know, it's like making decisions easy. Just like making data simple, it's making decisions easy. You'll see why in just a minute. David has 20 years in data analytics at well-known and emerging technology companies, including Actian, Attunity, Click, and Intel. Although I don't think Intel is an emerging technology company, but it's on the list. Seeing the market opportunity for decision intelligence and how it will change the velocity and volume with which decisions will be made, David joined Diwo as Chief Revenue Officer. That means he makes all the money, and we've got to talk about your incentive plan. I'm sure it's terrific.
We're not going there, Al. Trust me, we're not going there.
We're supposed to be very transparent and open on this podcast. All right. Diwo is an innovator in AI-powered decision intelligence, which we'll talk about. The company's platform accelerates business decision-making by helping users quickly understand the metrics or how metrics change or why metrics change. It delivers actionable recommendations that improve business outcomes. It combines AI, ML-driven automation, and patented contextual intelligence. And I think they already have a ton of Fortune 1000 enterprises that are working with them. Welcome, David. I appreciate you being here.
Great to be here. Under the circumstances, I'm glad I'm not with you, but I'm glad I'm with you nonetheless.
All good. I'm coming out of it now. You've had COVID as well, I presume.
Absolutely. Yes, I've had the experience.
You had the experience. So everybody in your family had it, or is it just you? Or
everybody but my wife, which we're going to donate her to science to figure out what the reason for that was. But she somehow managed to dodge it, whereas everybody else has had the experience and fortunately come out the other side okay, which is not to be taken for granted every time.
Well, there's got to be some coincidence here because my wife is the only person in my family of 5 that hasn't had it either. I don't get it.
Yep.
I don't know how she's avoiding it. They're living right or something. I don't know.
I can't give them that much credit, but there could be something to it.
All right. Hey, please introduce yourself a little bit further. I gave a little bit of an intro, but talk to some of your experience and what brings you here.
Yeah. So as you touched on, been in the data space now for quite a while, and a lot of the things that I was party to was this whole notion of self-serve analytics and all the we'll democratize data, and all that sounded so good to me years ago, right? And until we actually started trying to do it. And then we realized not everybody, woke up one day and told their mom they want to be an analyst, right? So we were democratizing data for the masses, and an awful lot of people kind of consider themselves to be business people, not analysts per se. And I think it's created a real challenge because there was an expectation, right? The expectation was, wow, we turn self-serving. We turn on self-serve analytics somehow, right? And we give people access, and we give them a Power BI or a Click or something like that, and everything will be great. We'll have unlocked tremendous value in our data if we just find them a data buffet that they can go help themselves. And the reality is, it ain't happened, and it's not going to happen, right? It's just it's not the way people are wired. That's not the way the vast majority of us like to think. There are plenty of us that are full-time analysts, Got it. But the vast majority of people that are asking to be analysts today, in that self-service model, that are they're actually the ones responsible for making decisions from this data. They're not, they're just not getting the value. They don't see themselves as being, slaves to dashboards and sitting there and trying to extract nuggets to be able to, mine gold from the data. So the paradigm has to change, right? And I think that's what's got me excited now is that on one hand, maybe I contributed to this whole self-serve, analytic thing that maybe hasn't panned out quite the way we'd all hoped. But on the other hand, I think there is a path forward, and that is allow the analytics to render a recommendation that leads to an immediate decision, as opposed to stopping with dashboards and charts and graphs and that. And so that's why I'm so geeked about the decision intelligence space and it's something that's got a lot of momentum behind it, and not just our company, but a number of other firms. And it's simply that it's getting to value faster for all this analytic input.
Before we jump into Diwo, tell me about the Chief Revenue Officer. Is that sales or is it finance? Or is it both?
It's so I have a team that is on the sales side that reports up to me. I have a marketing organization that reports up to me, and then I have a customer success organization to make sure everybody's happy with what they get, and that group reports up to me. So that's the sphere of influence that I have. No, they don't let me sign a check. That would not be that would not be good.
So you're the sales guy. You're getting things done. You're closing deals.
Yeah, and we're the bigger issue is I think at this stage of the process, um, I kind of think of myself as chief evangelist, right? Not
Hmm.
just for Diwo, which is what I get paid to do, but also for this whole decision intelligence thing, right? Is we're at that evangelist stage. We're at that crossing the chasm stage with this, where it's about finding really compelling stuff that people can go back to and say, look, we solved this. We've been working on this for a long time. We've never been able to figure it. We solved it. Right. And that's a big deal.
I got a lot of questions, but let's go ahead and let's talk about Diwo. Why Diwo?
Come on. The real question is, where the hell did that name come from?
Ah, thank you. That is the real question.
Yes, that's everywhere. Diwo, Diwo. Yeah,
It's
so
kind
it's,
of, it's kind of
yeah,
like Devo, the '80s
exactly.
band.
We are Diwo. So Diwo, Diwo. Actually, it's an acronym for Decision In, Wisdom Out. But it's a lot shorter to call it Diwo. And so Diwo actually, our founder was it had a very, very successful data science consulting company. And the genesis for the company, Diwo, was, they'd put together all these, tremendous models, and deploy the models back out to the customer. And the customer would take the output of the models and not be able to generate any business value. Right. And so he's looking at this and going, wait, the problem is not the production of insights. The problem is the consumption of insights, right? How does that data science output translate into business value? And so the genesis of the company was, he said, look, there's got to be a better way, right? There are lots of companies out there doing tremendous work on the vendor side in data science, and then you've got organizations that have hundreds of data scientists, right? So there's no shortage of that data science effort and that effort to to mine value from your data sources. But the problem that he identified, and he's spot on, is the translation of that analytic output from the data, the models, whatever, into something that's actionable that creates business value immediately, right? And so that's really the genesis of Diwo.
So it was obviously purposeful to choose decision intelligence versus data science.
Great question. So decision intelligence is a it's a practice in of itself, and it's not data science. It's the consumption of data science, right? And so the work that H2O.ai and Dataiku and Data Robot and those tools and all those scientists, they're doing great stuff. The question is, can we extract business value quicker, better, faster from that great stuff that the data scientists are doing? So we're not a data science platform, we're a decision intelligence platform, in that we take that output and we put it into a format that every user can use to immediately identify opportunities and then translate those opportunities into actions that create business value.
But I presume you must sit on top of data science, and I presume is it your data science, or could it be third party data science, or it's the full stack?
So you're correct. We sit on top of data science, and typically it's the client's data science that we're sitting on top of, right? So we're going to go in, everybody's got their data analytics stack today, right? We'll all complain about the quality of the data or the, whatever, but we all got one, right? We're paying zillions of dollars for it. So that tech stack exists. You're running BI on it today, probably. You've got your models running on it as well. We don't go in and disrupt any of that. We sit on top of all of that. We drop pipelines down into your data warehouse, your cloud data warehouse, your data mesh, your data fabric, whatever you got. And then we have a model orchestrator. So we're not actually absorbing the models. We're actually just orchestrating the models so that we grab the artifacts from those models, or we grab the output from those models, or we can trigger a model if we need to trigger a model, and so on. And so, yeah, we're laying on top of the enterprise's existing data analytics tech stack, including their data science.
Who is your target client profile in this case then?
So think of it this way. So think of it any place where you have repetitive decisions being made by a group of people. So, and that didn't narrow it down a lot. I apologize for that.
Right? Every company on the planet?
Every car, in fact, every bar you walk into on a Thursday afternoon too at happy hours, there's repetitive decisions being made. But no, it's really what we're talking about is if you think about, all right, supply chain. I got planners, right? I have planners that have to plan purchases, inventory allocation, in their supply chain. Every day, their job is to make multiple decisions per day. Marketing, right? On the marketing side, what campaigns are we running? What promotions are we running? What are we doing for customer churn and customer retention, right? These are decisions that I make every day. Pricing is another one. In the retail space, what products am I going to put on the floor at what price point and in what inventory across 500 locations. So there's human beings in all those jobs that have to somehow look at data and make intelligent business decisions using something other than intuition, gut feel, what I did last time, or luck. And so the theory's always been is that's right now that's a business intelligence tool application, and we'll give them a dashboard. Well, it's a long way between a dashboard and deciding, of my 565 locations, how many of each SKU is going to go to each one, given that everyone has a different demographic, everybody has a different geography, everybody has a different climate, et cetera, et cetera. And so a human being right now is faced with making those decisions. And, Gartner does this every year, right? Gartner does the survey that says how many decisions are data driven, right? And it's always, I think people lie and say 40%, but it's never more than 40%, right? And I would argue most of those data driven decisions are, hey, I already made my decision. I just went back and found the data to justify it. That's not the same as being a data driven decision, right? And so what we look at is we kind of turn it upside down and say, let the data speak, right? We'll uncover the insights automatically. Let's skip the whole dashboard phase, right? Let's just bypass dashboards. Let's go right to having an analytic output that says, in natural, we use a natural language programming. It says, hey, we found these opportunities for you, and here's our recommendation for how you exploit those opportunities.
I think this is tough though, and the reason here's why I say it's. I am in the industry, you're in the industry, and sometimes I think I certainly take it for granted. And I talked about this on my last podcast, but I had a buddy that called me. They're in the auto industry, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to go, and I really want to revamp our reporting." Ultimately, he wants to make the decisions you're talking about. But yeah, I'm going to revamp our reporting. The problem is he's went through, let's say, 50 acquisitions, and he's got 50 plus data repositories. So at first he comes to me and goes, well, I've done some assessment and I think I know how I'm going to go with that's going to provide my reporting. And he goes, what do you think? And I'm like, do you know that they're going to connect all the data sources? And he's like, well, they said that they could connect to most of them. I said, so they can't connect to all of them? I mean, so you're going to leave some data on the table? He goes, well, let me come back. So, yeah. I mean, he goes back and forth and, he talked to one company, and I kid you not, one of them said, because I gave him some advice, how accurate are you in the data with your reports and stuff like this? And they said like 95%. He's like, what? And then the other one said they were 100%, but it takes longer to get that report. Then I started talking to him about it. I said, what questions are you trying to answer? And do you believe in your data to begin with? So then we started talking about data fabric. And so pretty soon he's like, I don't even know what to do anymore, man.
Right.
I mean, and he's honestly the president of the company. I mean, the smartest guy I know. But if you're not doing this every day, going back to the target client, maybe it's a larger client that has an army of people that are doing some of this stuff. But if we could do it for my buddy that called, ton of opportunity.
Well, you're spot on, right? So it depends. For us, we're mostly Fortune 1000 because they've had an army of people and they've been at this for a while. Now, having said that, they still have the same "can I get to this data" question, right? That's still out there. But the way I always tell people to look at it, because I'm of the opinion now that the pursuit of perfection in your data is a never-ending quest. And it's Don Quixote like, and you can keep chasing this thing as long as you want. You will never get there. You never will get there. You just get incrementally better, but that's all you can hope for, is to keep getting incrementally better. However, in the meantime, people still have to make decisions today, right? Today, in that guy's company, your friend had tons of staff that made decisions based upon what? Right? He's looking to give them new reporting so they can make better decisions. Chances are what they have right now is probably terrible, and they're still doing it by gut feel or instinct or intuition. Not that that's entirely
after the fact, right?
After the fact.
Well, after, yeah,
after the fact, and not that there isn't a space for that, right? Because we don't necessarily believe in autonomous decision making from analytics. We believe in, if you give people recommendations of what they need to do to exploit opportunities that were uncovered in the data, you make it actionable, you make it specific, then they'll make incremental improvements to the business. Now, will it be 100% accurate, day one? Hell no, right? But, you have to look at it relative where you are today. And in most organizations, we've got a couple of Fortune 10s that we're working with, right, that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars. They get it. They're like, look, we're no closer to the Holy Grail than we were, 2 or 3 years ago, but we still have to make decisions, right? Right now, people are making bad decisions, and we need to try to see if we can at least give them the data and give them the opportunity to make a better decision day in and day out.
But so, David, are you actually making decisions better, or are you identifying questions for the client that they haven't even thought of yet?
Both. Yeah, both. That's the cool part of, that's where AI kicks in, right? And so we have our AI, in a lot of our patents are around something we call contextual intelligence. So our customers have a use case where they know what questions they want to ask, right? How many widgets do I need to order given my lead time is X and I've got 5 locations and our production's Y? Okay, that's pretty much a predictive value kind of thing you can do today. But then there's all sorts of other variables that may go into it, because I can order X and I can have them all there and I can say, hey, I did my job. But it turns out that this other widget isn't going to be available. Production is going to be restricted. And so I can have a bunch of inventory just sitting on the shelf, getting old, getting bad, or just wasting capital, because I didn't have the contextual knowledge to know that my supply chain was going to be disrupted by another part, and I didn't account for it. I just blindly went ahead and did whatever I did before. And so that's the type of, and there's a zillion of those type of use cases, right? So that's the type of contextual knowledge that humans really aren't capable of doing at scale. So you can't have 50, 75 planners in your supply chain if you're a big Fortune 500 company, and expect them all to have these type of conversations where they're all knowing. But if you have one source of contextual knowledge, then you can put all that into into a system, and have the system come back and say, okay, this is what you would typically do. However, we also noted that this particular widget's running behind, therefore the production's going to be altered. Therefore, you should probably drop down your order for the next 3 weeks to X minus 20% or something like that. And so that really makes the decision better. So sometimes, yeah, we're just making decisions better. Sometimes we're just helping them make more decisions. All right. If I don't have to start with a dashboard, and I can start with just a series of recommendations and says, hey, we've found 9 problems. Here's 9 solutions. Evaluate them and decide. I'm going to get a lot more done that day, right? I'm going to create a lot more business value. But oftentimes what we're also surfacing is something that the human wouldn't have come up with. You just look and you go, wow, here we are. I never would have thought of that. Right? And that's what the AI is for.
Now, are the recommendations part of the AI itself, meaning that it's going to learn upon the recommendations that ultimately bear fruit versus those that you toss aside?
Yeah.
Is it
So
learning as it goes?
yeah, this is really where the cool part is. I think the cool part is that, as when you make when we make a recommendation, the user has a choice. They can accept it, they can amend it, or they could reject it. But we know what effectively that recommendation is kind of the baseline, right? And then of course we're sitting there watching the data, going forward. So any future change in that data due to a recommendation be accepted, we track, we know, we learn from, right? We see the delta, we can see the response. And so, yeah, we have, models of models, if you will, that are able to predict, are able to sharpen the accuracy of our recommendations based upon the outcome of previous recommendations.
Now, how do you assess whether a client is ready for your technology? Or do you look at it and say, the data's solid, or is it's at least as solid as it's going to get?
Yeah.
And then you have a data science platform, probably even have a CDO. Now Diwo comes in and says, all right, we can build on top of that, and we can make recommendations that'll improve your business. Or
Yeah, that's precisely. It's basically, what do you got today, right? And for most people, they've got a pretty good tech stack put together. It's, it might be at that 80, 85%, of the data's there, or the quality of the data, et cetera. But it's at a high enough level where we can, if you're using business intelligence tools, then you can use our decision intelligence platform on top of it. And then same thing for the models. If the models exist, then we're going to use them. If the models don't exist, then we can help you build them, or because we do have that sister organization that has hundreds of data scientists working for it. So we can also build a model and give it to a customer if they need it. But ultimately, from a readiness perspective, we're looking at if you're running business intelligence today, good, let's go. Let's do decision intelligence instead, and go from there. It's not much more than that, to be honest.
is it cloud only, or is it hybrid? Or
It's technically, I guess it's hybrid, right? But almost everything we do is in their virtual private cloud, and that has to do with InfoSec more than anything else, right? So most of these are mission critical ops functions that they're wanting to apply decision intelligence against. So that data is in their VPCs, and so that's where we end up running, is in their VPCs.
so you leave the data where it's currently residing in.
Exactly. No migration, no more moving, none of that kind of stuff. Because that's no fun, and we've done that enough. You just tell us where it is, and we drop pipelines into it for when we need to access it.
Now, I'm to understand that you will create new models, but what are some of the common models or use cases that fit within your sweet spot?
So, it's, as I said earlier, it's ops kind of stuff. So we're domain agnostic, but it's any place where you have people that are making, a consistent set of decisions, even if I'm responsible for a slightly different, part of it. So supply chain is big, retail is big, even when you get into risk and risk management, that's big. Inventory allocations, logistics. Logistics is a huge one today because optimizing logistics is predominantly a human function, where we think about what we're supposed to do next. So anytime where you want, and invariably they're human operators, right? These are all people that are tasked with making the optimal decision multiple times a day for their customer. Now, this could mean you're a Wall Street trading firm, right? And you've got some of the most amazing data science ever. Or you could literally be making laundry detergent, and you have somebody with that's a laborer that's on a relatively low wage scale that is being told, you've delivered a recommendation as to how to mix the ingredients that particular day to get optimal optimal production at the first pass. So it's a range of potential use cases. The use cases are, as I said before, domain agnostic, but the key to it is, we have to make these we have to make similar types of decisions on a regular basis, and we can use data to drive those for us.
Can you give me a profound area of impact that you've made, like in one of those use cases, or even a client reference that really speaks to the offering that Diwo presents?
Yeah, it's really interesting if you get into, like, in the campaign management side of the business, right, which is the marketing side. We have customers that are responsible for billions of credit cards being out there, right? Now,
Hmm.
their goal is to get more spend on their credit card versus some other brand. So they have massive marketing efforts to be able to try to optimize that spend, towards their cards. And we provide the decision intelligence and the recommendations for all their issuers to be able to deliver a marketing campaign. So we recommend to hundreds, thousands of issuing banks how to maximize their credit card spend using marketing campaigns. So it's kind of typical. It's always things that typically have a big impact on that customer. Now, in that particular case, thousands of users. In other cases, we have 99 key people. I'm sorry, 300 key people running 99 categories at one of the largest retailers we have in the U.S. So those 99 categories have 300 people, and they run the business. They're the key. When you go to the store, if the shelf is empty, it's their fault. If the shelf's full, it's their fault too, right? They want someplace just in between. And so, in that case, there's only 300 people that use this, but every day, what are they looking at? They're trying to plan what they're going to need to have, and, work with their vendors. And if they're excess inventory, create promotions. It's $1 billion impact. I mean, the stuff that we're doing is, we're not measuring $10 million worth of impact. We're measuring $100 million worth of impact, and more.
Well, speaking of COVID, the shelf is probably empty, and I'm not sure it's their fault this time,
No,
given the logistics.
no, but that's one of the interesting things, right? We've been doing predictive analytics, right, where we'll look at historical trends, yada yada yada, we'll go back over the last 3 years. What the hell good does that do you now? I mean, you can't go back. You want to go back and relive 20 and 21, and learn something from it, because, thank God 22 is different, but it's still not 2019. So, the old way of doing things with, looking at trends and historical data, and being able to do predictive analytics straight up, don't doesn't work. It just
That's
fundamentally
you know
doesn't
that's
work.
a A great point in that all the data that we've had over probably 2 years in many of the logistics areas is for naught. I mean, it's not going to provide any value at all. So
Absolutely.
that's a great example to carry forward. So, what would Diwo do differently in that case specifically, ignoring the prehistoric data and somehow looking forward? It's got to take the data for statistical analysis that's underneath it, right? The data science. So, otherwise, what would it be doing differently?
Well, if you think about it, instead of the traditional predictive analytics that you did based upon historical data and consistent run rates and et cetera, what you look at is you end up with a much more complicated um, scenario, right, or strategy, much more complicated than what the humans that are in the loop are traditionally used to dealing with. So today, right, like if I'm a logistics company, let's see if I get this straight. 2019, everything was going, according to plan. 17, 18, 19, then boom, you know, stores shut down. I'm suddenly, double my volumes, and then it starts to peter out in 2021, and now it's back to 2022. How do I deal with this, right? And so you're starting, when our decision intelligence kicks in and makes recommendations to a logistics company, it's taking into account what happened in 2018, 2019, 2020, 21. It's also maybe taking into account what was happening with, Al Martin's business and how much he was shipping to us. But I'm also getting data sources in that telling, okay, uh, what's happening on the social circle? What are my social feeds telling us? What are we getting from intent data from the web? All these other sources that never went into these models before all have to be accounted for. And because if you don't, then and you're effectively flying blind. And I think you learn the lesson. They just can't do that.
Hey, podcast listeners, to be respectful of time, we're going to end it here and then we're going to pick it up next week. Thanks for listening.